Great, and we're live. Hey everybody, and welcome to the cannabis industry's first virtual hiring event. My name is Carson Hummus, and I'm the founder of Vangst, and we're so excited to be here today. I think out of all the panels that we have today, this is the one that I was most excited about. We have the founder of LeafLink, the founder of Kiva, and the founder of Cresco Labs, three companies that have booths today with open jobs, and I know many people in the audience are hoping to get hired at these companies. And so it's really a special opportunity to have the founders, the brains behind the companies here with us today. So thank you guys so much for being here with us. To kick it off, we'll jump right in. We would love to hear a little bit about you, how you decided to jump into the cannabis industry, your story in getting your business started, and of course, a little bit about what your business does. You know, we'll dive in deeper. So keeping it in somewhat of the 3-minute ballpark, but we all just love to hear about how you decided to get started in this space. So Christy, why don't we start with you?
Perfect. All right, great. So my name is Christy Palmer. I'm the co-founder at Kiva Confections, and we got started, my husband and I, back in 2010 is when Kiva launched its first product into the market, our chocolate bars. We're in the edible space, so we do chocolate bars, mints, gummies, and more products soon to come. And so yeah, we started in our home kitchen in the Bay Area, California. We were starving artists, so we were photographers before jumping into cannabis, and basically looking to make ends meet. It was 2008 and the economy was down in the dumps. And so we had the brilliant idea to start a garden shed cultivation in our backyard in the house that I grew up in San Leandro. And it was like a 15 by 15 room. It was tiny, but that was going to make us like millions of dollars within a year. And we were going to buy a yacht and sail around the world. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm in, right? And I haven't bought a yacht or not sailing around the world just yet, but still hoping that could eventually be the outcome. But yeah, so from cultivation, we weren't exactly expert indoor cultivators, and so we had to pivot to cloning. From cloning, we then pivoted to edibles, and that was really our niche. We could build a brand, we could apply the skills that we learned in photography school to branding and the look and feel, and then we really set out to create an edible that was better than anything else on the market at that time, that would exude trust and help newbies and even existing consumers feel like they were getting a consistent, delicious, professional product in an edible. So that's it in a nutshell.
Amazing. And Ryan from LeafLink?
Sure. Thanks for having us. I'm Ryan Smith, co-founder, CEO here at LeafLink. We are a wholesale marketplace that connects amazing brands like Kiva to thousands of retailers now. Back in 2015, when my co-founder Zach and I started the company, we were really excited about bringing new technology around like business to business marketplaces to a new industry. We thought there was a really unique opportunity to set a new standard and make the space go from this Wild West concept to truly this like tech first virtual supply chain that sits on top of our B2B marketplace. And we've grown a lot over the last 5 years. We're now a team of 120 plus people and facilitating just around a third of all legal wholesale cannabis transactions in the United States.
And I always laugh. Actually, Ryan and I met. We were both just getting our company started. We were at Galvanize, a co-working space, like sitting across the way from each other. Each of our teams was like 2 people, and one night we like asked each other what the other was working on, and it's like so funny to just see how the space in the industry has grown over the last 5 years. And last but certainly not least, Charlie with Cresco. Very excited to hear about your journey.
Yeah, Carson, thanks for having me today, and with this great panel too. It's good to see you guys. Charlie Bachtel, co-founder, CEO, Cresco Labs, based out of Chicago. Really started evaluating cannabis as an industry when Illinois passed the Compassionate Use Act back in 2013. And long story short, a prior career attorney, banking industry, specifically mortgage banking. And so as part of the industry right before the economic collapse that Christy referenced in 2008. And was part of the industry slightly before it, during it, and after. And And really, the organization that I was with not only survived that downturn, really the collapse of the mortgage industry, but thrived in the post-regulated version of mortgage banking. And when me and my co-founders saw what Illinois was developing with cannabis, and really what we looked at is generation 2 of cannabis, which was highly regulated and compliance focused. A different version of the more pioneering markets. It was something that kind of fit our professional paths. Of course, the personal interest was there. It was fascinating. It was pretty clear to me that this was the most fascinating thing that I'd ever come across. In 2013, you kind of had this coming together of general population's perspective on cannabis, and you had really the development of this true medicinal approach to it, and also this kind of criminal justice modified version of thinking about ways should cannabis be illegal to begin with. So we were at this convergence of some pretty dynamic things that were happening in cannabis, and we saw a path where we could help. If cannabis was going to be moving in this regulated, compliance-focused direction, we knew that we could help build that. We'd been through it before, and kind of felt like we'd read this book and had an idea on where it was heading. So now operate, one of the larger operators in the U.S., operating in 9 states, and happy to be here today.
Great. Well, thanks everybody. I think let's spend a little bit of time here talking about building teams. Actually, Charlie, I think it was you when I visited you guys in Chicago maybe 4 years ago. We went out to dinner and you said to me, and I'll never forget it, the most important job of a founder is to hire, right? At the end of the day, that's what you need to do, build great teams. And so we'll start with Charlie, right? I think you guys have like 1,000 employees or some very high number. Anybody out there looking to join Cresco, what advice would you give them? Just talk to us a little bit about what it's like to work for you and what advice you have to people looking to join your company or any cannabis company.
Yeah, so we're right at about 2,000 right now. So
I was way off.
So you've helped us so much. You helped us there. So I think with anything, right? So even taking a step back on cannabis related, I think what you want to find is an opportunity that you think is an interesting, fascinating, great opportunity, and then also realize how you can be involved in that and how you can contribute to it. I think that's, in my experience, figuring out where those two things intersect. Great opportunity, what you could do to actually help it, are where you'll find a tremendous amount of success. So, it's one thing to look at the industry as an interesting industry to become a part of, but really finding the way that you want to be a part of it. I mean, you've got 4 people, on this presentation here today, including Carson, that are 4 very different kind of realms of the industry. So this industry is massive. The paths that you can blaze in this industry are very diverse, and everything from plant touching to never seeing the plant and everything in between. So figuring out, how you would most contribute and be able to fit into the different elements of the industry, I think is really important from the very beginning. And you're right. As far as founder building a company, I tend to look at, as I mentioned, sort of the Gen 2 of cannabis. I think I was part of the Gen 2 of cannabis, a little bit more traditional industry background, legal background that came into it to help develop the regulatory nature of it. But Gen 3 is really where, we're looking now, is the other traditional industries that cannabis is going to end up looking a lot like in the next 5, 10, 15 years. I think, that type of background is really important to sort of drag cannabis to where it can get to. That's what I always focus on.
And thank you, Charlie. And Ryan and Christy, both of you have hired many people, are hiring people. What advice would you give to people out there? What do you look for when you're looking to add people to your team? Curious to hear both of your perspectives here.
Sure, I'll go ahead and start. So yeah, when we're building out our teams, we're looking for, I always like to call them superstars. They're people who are experts in their area, and they've often taken companies all the way from here to here, and then we want to bring them into our cannabis company. We're still kind of right around here, and we want them to grow us back up to where they've been before. So that's really exciting, and it's fun to source those types of folks because they're experienced, they're a hell of a lot smarter than me and a lot of the other folks on my team. So there's a lot to learn from them, and we love to find those types of people who can really kind of accelerate our growth and teach our company a little bit more about what they can do. And I also think it's a really interesting time. And Charlie used to talk about kind of generation three. Right now, and in the past maybe 2 years, you can actually hire just this amazing talent pool has become available to us because cannabis, at least in California, of course, is legal. There's licensing, so there's a very solid foundation now in cannabis that didn't exist 3 years ago. So that's made other people from other industries look at the cannabis industry much more seriously, and you can only imagine how that will grow when federal prohibition is lifted as well. We'll be able to source an entirely new, different pool of people who wouldn't come into the cannabis industry unless it was totally legal. So.
Yeah, I very much agree with everything you're saying. I think on our side, the speed of the industry moves and the kind of people that we're looking for, I think it's really important that, we're a startup, but a lot of our clients are too, and so is the industry. So there's just this exponential level of growth and learning that needs to happen, a willingness to do that. Companies grow. And so our team's willingness to execute along the way between sometimes, the industry is figuring itself out. So what the end point is always to be determined, but an interesting challenge. And the other thing is the people that, back in the day when we put job descriptions up, would leave out that it was in the cannabis industry, that we were creating a technology platform to service the space. To Christy's point now, I think the industry's come such a long way. There's such incredible people entering the space, and the specialization of certain skill sets that, it's a whole, everything you do in any other industry is almost a place for that role here in cannabis. And so I think it's really important for all of us to continue to welcome those skill sets, those archetypes to the industry, because it's great for our company, it's great for our clients, and it's ultimately great for the space going, and will continue to grow. And I think a few points on things we focus on and care about when we're recruiting.
Yeah, and one other thing, if I could just add too, I think when we're sourcing and looking for folks, we like to really paint a realistic picture of what it's like to work in cannabis. I think some people can think it's a little bit sugar-coated and super fun and lots of perks, and you get to smoke all day. But it's really like, I would say the opposite. It's crazy, it's flexible, it's high stress, fast paced. No day is the same, or no 2 days are the same. And so, yeah, I think if you're looking for a cush job where you can kind of relax and take it easy, this is probably not the right industry for you.
And I think we've always seen people that have like a startup mindset, right? The people that we've seen struggle, they go into a client, one of the three of you, and then they come across some type of a challenge and they say, well, don't we have a department that deals with this? And it's like, you're the department. So figure it out and circle back, right? And I think that's just a recurring theme here. Taking it back a little bit to you guys as founders and your journeys, I think candidates really love to hear, from what your experience has been like. And so over the last 5 years or however long you've been doing this, what were the biggest sort of unexpected challenges that you came across, and how did you get through it, whether it's personally as a founder or as the company? What were some of the unexpected challenges that you faced?
I think I could kick us off, but from our side, when we were building out the marketplace product, something that's really interesting is, as I'm sure everyone here knows, state to state, there's just different cultures, there's different regulations to account for. When we were building LeafLink's marketplace product, it was really like, what can we do to make sure we're servicing something agnostic that could appeal to the most people in the most states, but while also being really respectful of those differences and the backgrounds that exist in each of the different communities that are in each of these states using the platform. I think a lot of times as a startup or as a technology platform, you try to find like the one problem to kind of enter a larger legacy vertical the industry has so many problems and so many opportunities to be served that I think staying focused, making sure we were doing it in a way that appealed to the most people so it could properly scale and be truly like an industry-wide solution was an interesting learning experience. Kept it interesting, challenging, but that's how we kind of kicked off on finding the product market fit.
Yeah, I think something unexpected that you don't necessarily hear about when you're on the outside of a cannabis company is how difficult it is to exist as a cannabis company in a world that's not super friendly to cannabis yet. So, finding property, getting leases, finding a friendly landlord, finding office space, getting banking, getting funding, all those things come at like a cannabis premium. You can often be denied services when somebody finds out that you're a cannabis business, right? As Ryan alluded to, when sourcing people and hiring, sometimes you keep that part like a little bit more quiet. And that's changing, thankfully, but it does still exist where, you're just not quite treated like any other business. So there are tons of challenges in the cannabis industry, and then that one exists pretty prevalently still, but hopefully as cannabis becomes more normalized, we'll see that start to go away.
I'd agree with what's been said already. This industry is nothing but problems. And I think this ties even Christy's last comment from the question before together. If you don't love solving problems, this isn't the space for you. Not yet. It's anytime you have an emerging industry that meets regulation, you're going to have problems. And we don't even refer to them as problems. We refer to them as opportunities in our organization. If you don't relish the chance to turn problems into opportunities, you're not going to be successful in this space.
And, if you could go back in time and, give yourself one piece of advice, there's a lot of people out there that are looking to start a cannabis company or just started, and maybe they just raised their seed round or they're going to go raise their seed round, but it's day one. What would, you have told yourself, or what would you have told someone that's just getting going right now?
Chris, do you want to start this one off?
Sure. Man, this one's tough because I wouldn't change any of the experiences that I've had along the way, because they are, man, even the most gnarly of lessons, they are super important, and they sear themselves into your brain, and you can never forget them. And they inform everything you do moving forward. But I guess if I had to tell myself something, I would say, it's don't worry so much about some things are just going to be how they're going to be, and you just kind of have to take a deep breath and deal with the hiccups as they come and compartmentalize, right? There's always going to be a zillion problems, so if you can just take that problem, put it up on a shelf for the night, and think about it again tomorrow, it will still be there for you to address. So try not to lose too much sleep, because you're going to need to be on top of your A game the next day to solve all those problems.
All right, Ryan, I'll go. And again, quickly, like we've talked about so far, just expect the unexpected. Know that there's going to be challenges at every corner, and get your mindset on that. If that's what you still determine that that's something that you like, then go for it. Because I do still to this day, I think this is the most interesting thing I've ever come across in my life, and it's well worth it. So, building a plane while flying it, there's all kinds of analogies to sort of what we're doing. At the end of the day, you're part of an industry that is going to be a consumer staple going forward. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so the opportunity to be a part of building an industry from scratch, I don't know many opportunities like that. But again, know that going into it, be honest with yourself and know if that's something that you love to do. And if it is, go for it, because it is the most fascinating thing I've ever seen.
Agreed. I think the challenges are nonstop, and my advice to myself back then would be, I think there's a lot of competition in the space. There's new brands, new states, new products, all new regulations launching, in tandem. But there's this unique element that I think we could all leverage, and I think we do to a good degree, but everyone has the same goal at the end of the day, right? Like, it's a more mature industry that's federally recognized, that provides the baseline tools that we need to grow our businesses, service patients, service clients. And that is, I think, a really powerful and unique thing that probably older legacy industries just don't have. And so there's all these things we do day to day, but at the end of the day, having a unified goal is pretty special and powerful, which taking advantage of that and using that to our benefit, our clients' benefit would have been some advice. We've done it, but I think could always, pitch in more and do more there.
So I think outside of, well, probably just as important as hiring is for founders is fundraising, right? Businesses go out of business if they run out of money. So I think that it would be awesome for us to hear a little bit more about your fundraising journeys. There's been, there's a lot of challenges that come with raising capital in the cannabis space. So we'd love to learn a little bit from you all on how the fundraising process went from the first time, and Charlie, in your case, up through the IPO, hear a little bit about that and advice that you would give to folks out there looking to raise capital in the cannabis space. How important are different types of investors looking for partners versus dollars? Really love to dive in a little bit deeper there. And Ryan, maybe you could kick us off, given I think you recently announced a very large amount of capital that you all raised, and we'd just love to hear from you to start.
Sure. So on LeafLink side, we've raised $50 million in equity capital. We recently closed, I think, one of the largest, if not the largest, debt facilities at a $250 million deal about 3 months ago. And for us, I think it's been interesting, right? I think for companies like Christy and Charlie, it's even more challenging than it is for us. We're not plant touching, but when you are, there's just a smaller subset of investors that are willing to work with you because of who their investors are. We spent a lot of time in the beginning working with cannabis-focused funds, and something that we took a lot of pride in was helping educate, doing the dance, making sure we were as buttoned up as possible to be the first investments that some larger institutional funds like Larry Hippo, like Nosar, like Thrive Capital, we were their first investments in the cannabis space. We want to make sure we're as polished as can be and as compliant as we need to really be that bridge and let people know, like, this is an interesting space, it's true, but it's also a great space to play, and there are exciting things happening here getting exposure to. And I think something that we've done along the way is we're always, when we do go out to raise capital, from the beginning of the conversation, I'll basically, one of my first questions is, can you even cut checks into this space? And if the answer is you don't know or no, perfectly cool. I'll give you a download and get you excited, because you should be, about what's happening here. And eventually, I think everyone will get there. And if you can, great. Like, let's dive into LeafLink as a business. But I think we all need to be like stewards of what's happening here to a larger VC, PE, hedge fund audience, so that they know what's happening is exciting. There's a lot of opportunity here, and there are some great partners for them to link up with.
That's great, Ryan. Yep, totally agree. For Kiva's experience in raising capital, we waited until about the middle of 2018 before we did any raising outside of friends and family. And so that was when regulation was taking place in California, and we needed the capital desperately to be able to weather the storm of regulation. We lost a lot of customers due to their inability to get a license in a timely manner. So 2018 was just one of those years that you're just happy that it's long gone and that it was 2 years ago. So that was really important. Yeah. So that was really important for us, was to have a bit of a nest egg or a war chest to weather the unexpected events of 2018. And then having capital has been a huge relief for us. So we're able to grow, we're able to hire and invest in our infrastructure in a way that we weren't able to do prior. So we were kind of, growing off of our own cash flow. So if there was a piece of manufacturing equipment that we needed, we had to wait a year or however long it took to save those pennies to buy that piece of equipment. That was the old world. And now we can look ahead, decide where we want to grow and where we want to end up, and purchase those assets and hire those folks in advance so they can help us get there more quickly. So capital, I think a pretty good piece of advice is raise money when you don't absolutely need it. Because when you absolutely need it, you're kind of got your back up against the wall, and you might have to take a deal that you may not, that might not be as favorable to you as if you raised money when you weren't in that type of a position.
So I would say Christy's last point is it's so important. This more than likely is going to be a capital intensive industry, depending on how you're approaching it. There's some capital light models But then capital light models tend to rely on third parties, and this is a tough industry to rely on third parties for right now. Secure supply chains like traditional industries don't really exist yet. Again, state by state, it's all different. So you've got to be very good stewards of capital, and you've got to be well capitalized for whatever it is that you're thinking about doing. For us, we went from friends and family, in a pre-operational time to friends and family plus to what I would call friends and family plus when we were still private, and then we did go public December of 18. And so that's when you do start getting into the the investment banking world, and you're doing brokered type raises. That's an ever-changing environment, and hopefully that becomes more normalized here with some federal modifications in the next, in the very foreseeable future. And I think we're in a good spot for that too. I'm bullish that regardless of outcome in November, cannabis is in a good spot to be supported and have some federal modifications coming forward here in the next year or two. So we've kind of been through it all at each kind of and type of capital raising. Friends and family through going public, equity and debt.
And Charlie, what has been the biggest difference in running the company privately versus now that you're public, for you and for your management team and for your staff? And is there, if I'm a candidate out there looking to join a company, should I be looking at if it's private or public, and what are the the pros and cons of each?
I mean, there's pros and cons to each type. It really depends on what type of position and what type of an impact you're looking to have on the industry. If you're looking at a local type operation, or if you're really thinking national and industrial. But things that change, everything changes. But I think everything changes with the organization as a whole, right? It's part of the maturity that we've seen in the organization. There's definitely some unique components to being public. For better or worse, you do have sort of these quarterly obligations that you're responsible for, and having to sort of put it out there publicly on a quarterly basis is a requirement. So there's definitely nuances to that, and you have to build that into your infrastructure. That has to be part of a CEO's day to day, and there needs to be that team around you that can help support a public venture. But yeah, I think you'll find pros and cons to private, public, small, large, and everything in between. But again, they've all been. I've enjoyed every part of this road. And there's been road. Part of the road was undercapitalized. Part of the road's been properly capitalized, and it's all been a great experience.
And we have about 10 minutes left. So switching gears here a little bit. The theme of this panel was how I built this, which is a podcast that actually Charlie and I bonded over a little bit. And they recently launched a How I Built Resilience, and they talked to founders about what their experience during COVID was like. So obviously the last now almost 8 months has been a wild journey for the world and for every business leader out there. So I'd love to learn a little bit from each of you, one around how your business was impacted, how your company responded, and sort of what the process throughout COVID has been like, and what the learnings have been.
Maybe it's my turn to start, or Chrissy, if you'd like, after you.
Oh, I think you might be muted. Sorry. So COVID was a little bit rough in the beginning. Not knowing if we were going to be deemed an essential business was really scary. That felt terrifying, actually. But luckily, we were deemed an essential business, so that really set the stage for the rest of the year. And I think it's important to just acknowledge what that means. In California, being deemed an essential business is huge, right? We're federally not legal, but in California, we are so important that we're still allowed to operate during this time. So that's just, it just shows the progress and the all the work that's been done and how far we've come in the industry. So really huge and super exciting. But so for Kiva, we had to implement social distancing inside of our facility, which meant spacing out the shifts, moving part of the operation to another facility so that we could physically get people spread apart. It also meant a lot of communication from our HR team, our safety team. They did an exceptional job coming out very quickly with great information on, hand washing, mask wearing, all those very kind of detailed things that needed to be done and followed. A whole new way of working inside the facilities and working with each other. And then to follow, I think what's been amazing for cannabis is the fact that people are stuck in their homes, and cannabis consumers, 45% of them are willing to consume alone, whereas people who drink, only 9% are willing to consume alone. That probably has changed with COVID, honestly. But the point is that cannabis consumers are already okay consuming alone. And so I think when you're stuck in your house and you're stressed about your job in the future and the election, cannabis is an excellent way for folks to unwind and relax and take the edge off. So it's the silver lining, I think, to this year is that people are consuming more cannabis.
Yeah, I agree. I think back in March 16th, to me, remember like us waiting on if it was going to be deemed essential. The fact that it was obviously huge, and seemed like generally alignment across all the different markets that we operated in. I think there's been the struggle of coronavirus, which has had us working from home over the last 7-8 months that we've been adjusting to, trying to keep the team together through virtual events, more just souping up communication to keep alignment going. We've actually onboarded like a fourth of our team in the last 7-8 months virtually. And then we had that to address. And then there was also over the summer, all the situations around social injustice that we had to pay attention to and address, just given particularly the industry we're in, the legacy of our industry and social injustice being so tightly woven, to where this space came from. And so what we did, first off, we stayed really close with our team, but we also built out a full people team and began really thinking more about our mission as a company, how we're messaging that out, what can we do given our size to really help precipitate a brighter, more progressive future, all while at home around some of these issues that have been, I think, dividing the country in so many ways. And so we're trying to, I think there's this interesting opportunity for us in the cannabis space to really set a new way, like build these things in from the very beginning, to how we're approaching recruiting, to how we're messaging the purpose of the company, to how we're using the success we do have, to further other initiatives that are important to the space. So we've been reflecting a lot on a few of these things, but it's an unexpected year, I think a painful year, and somehow we're nearing the end. So that's been 2020 for us.
Similarly to the story shared so far, everything changed, right? I mean, the entire way of doing business changed. For us, being vertically integrated across the platform, we basically had 3 different buckets of employees and business units, business models that we had to address. We've got a large corporate presence here in Chicago. We've got production facilities around the country. So that require you to be there. HQ was fairly easily adaptable to a remote working environment. Production facilities are not. People have to go to work. And then the third being the brick and mortar retail, where not only does it require people to be at work, but now you've got third parties coming and going throughout the day. So figuring out how to safely accommodate new ways of working across the platform was challenging. The team did an incredible job of really hyper-focusing on it. Communication, as you guys have mentioned already, was absolutely key. Over-communicating was really the initiative that we put in place from day one. And then the culture of your organization, this was an absolute test of cultures. And I think if you didn't have a good culture in your organization coming into it, I think this has been a much more challenging experience for you if you're still around. I think you really needed to have that buy-in and that support from the organization, from left to right, top to bottom, however you want to look at it, to be aligned, row in the same direction, knowing that we were pushing forward with essential business services. So it was a really key sort of thing to go through. But like Christy had mentioned earlier, and Ryan mentioned too, this is the kind of thing that if you've made your way through it, it's an incredible learning opportunity. You've learned stuff about yourself. You've learned stuff about your organization. You're probably emerging from this stronger if you're able to get through it. And so, we tend to be a glass half full or silver lining focused org. But this was an incredible year. It really does highlight too the importance of being good stewards in this space. As I mentioned at the very beginning, to kind of tie these things together, find the great opportunity and then find what you can contribute to it. It's so important that cannabis gets built the right way with the right priorities, being culturally relevant, being involved. That is a part of this industry. It always has been, and it always will be. And the more that operators and new entries into this space focus on that and making sure that cannabis gets built in this responsible, respected way, will lead to the most robust industry that we can develop. So I think we saw all of that in 2020 so far.
And last, but certainly not least, what's next for all of your companies? What positions are top of mind for the organization right now? And how can people get in touch if they want to get a job with your companies? What does 2021 look like, and really what are the opportunities for people at this career fair today to get involved with you all?
I could kick us off. So on our side, we are currently looking for some more executive roles, like a general counsel. We have different buckets of teams across the organization to further support the marketplace. There's a few financial analyst roles, operations analysts roles. There's a number of business development roles as well. And if you want to really dive in there, you can go to the careers page at leaflink.com. We can, our recruiting team would love to connect with you and share more on the vision, the path that we're down. But really, for us as a company, very focused on, we've been heads down on making sure we have product market fit and are in a number of markets serving the best companies in the space. Now we're really entering this next level of building a company, a corporation, something much larger with long-term staying power behind that product market fit, and love to chat more about people who are interested in learning more.
Christy, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. So we've got positions all across the organization. So finance, operations, marketing, sales, distribution, R&D, quality control. And what we look for when we're hiring candidates that demonstrate the Kiva core values. That's passion, innovation, integrity, and craftsmanship. So when you come to your interview with Kiva, just be ready to show how you live those qualities, give examples about how those qualities are important to you. And as always, thanks for your interest in working in the cannabis industry and for working for Kiva. It's really exciting to have folks that want to come join the team and are as fired up as we are about the cannabis industry. And if you're looking to find a list of our careers, it's kivaconfections.com/careers. And it has a whole list there of everything that we're hiring for.
We're in growth mode, so there's needs across the platform, and there's corporate related positions and skill sets that are needed, production facilities and retail. So career services page on the website at crescolabs.com. It would be a great place to check. Similarly there, I think you'll get information about the industry and the organization. Echoing what Christy said, best to come prepared. It's always appreciated. Identifying the opportunities and that you can contribute to the space, I think, is the best advice that I would give anybody looking for a job in the cannabis industry. It's not just to get into the industry. It's how can you impact the industry in a positive way, and that's where you'll find success.
Awesome. Well, we're out of time, but really just wanted to say thank you to Christy, Ryan, Charlie. It's so awesome to have you here. And all three companies have booths at the event with representatives talking to candidates. So you can go and talk to their hiring teams right after you leave here. So thank you guys for tuning in and have a great day.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Okay. There we go. We ended it.
All good.
Well,
Good
yeah.
stuff.